All right, it's 4 o'clock straight up. I'm going to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. I'll turn it over for making sure that, or confirming that the Kansas Open Meeting Act requirement notice has been properly provided.
Yes, I can confirm the packet was posted and the required notice was provided.
Perfect. And roll call, please.
Commissioner McFadden?
Here.
Commissioner Rogers?
Here.
Commissioner Mexell?
Here.
Commissioner Alt?
Here.
Commissioner Van Coburn?
Here.
Vice Chair Farmer?
Here.
And Chair Waters. With 6 out of 7 members, we have a quorum and we can proceed to business.
Fantastic. Has everybody had a chance to look over the minutes from, I have January 10th on here, but isn't that January 20th?
Right.
January 20th meeting.
I'd move that be approved as printed.
And second.
I have a motion and second of approval of the minutes of January 20th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries. That will bring us to new business.
Okay, so the first item that we have for new business is a rezoning request, and I'm going to start with the background of the property. The property that we are talking about for this rezoning request is the former Kansas Gas facility. That property has a planned development district that was originally approved in 1979 for utilities storage yard. So the property itself has a split zoning, the east 200 feet where the existing building is located, and a large portion of the parking lot is zone C3, while the remainder of the property is PDDI 2. So we have an isolated situation where we have specifically customized and tailored zoning for a use that is now obsolete on the site as Kansas Gas has moved on from the site. And the Salina Education or Health Education Foundation has purchased the property and is looking to redevelop it. So the proposal is to take the C3 zoning that currently exists on the east 200 feet of the property and extend it all the way across the property and unify the zoning under one zoning district, and that's the C3 zoning district. So that's what's being proposed here today. In looking at the zoning regulations, the packet goes into great detail of what the C3 zoning district is. I'm going to highlight the differences between the I2, which is our light industrial zoning district, and the C3 zoning district. So the primary differences that are going to impact the development standards and how this property would be developed in the future is the I2 district allows for outdoor storage, display, it allows for gravel, allows for it doesn't require landscaping, where the C3 district requires that all uses be contained inside of an enclosed building. It requires that all surfacing be paved with asphalt or concrete, and it requires landscaping along your front yards, and then also any bufferings that may or may not be required. So the development standard in the C3 district is much higher than what you would typically see for an I2 zoning district. And looking at the surrounding area and the suitability of the site and the character of the neighborhood, if you were to look at the zoning map, you'll notice that the east side of Ohio, which I've got the zoning layer on, so it's kind of hard to make out the streets, but here's Ohio here. So the line that you see that has pink on one side, yellow on the other, that's Ohio Street. The east side is all R1, so that's our single family residential zoning district, while the west side is solidly commercial, with the surrounding areas primarily being C3 with a PC5 to the north. So you have Waters True Value to the north, which is PC5. You also have Carson Funeral Home to the north, and then to the south you have Ablardo's, or not Ablardo's, but La Curva, and then you also have the state property to the south as well. And so those are all zone C3. So the proposed C3 zoning would be in conformance with the character of the surrounding area. For public utilities, I'll turn the zoning layer off so that you can see the utilities a little clearer. But what we have is an existing 24-inch in circumference sanitary sewer line in Ohio. That's the green line that you see on the map. We also have an 8-inch water line in Ohio that would serve this property in current or historically has. In addition to those lines, as part of the replat, which we'll get to later, a 6-inch water line is being proposed to connect the 8-inch line in Ohio down Edison Place, then down West Bend Avenue, and then connecting into the water line that we see to the south at Westchester Drive. So the site has adequate services. It's been in development. It has access to all of our police protection as well as fire protection. So there are no issues with the utilities on the site. Looking at street and access, this is an area where there's been some concern, and so there was a traffic study that was conducted by the project's engineer that was submitted to our engineering team and reviewed, and there were a number of conditions that are being proposed by our staff. And so those can be found in the traffic study that's included in your packet, but to summarize them, the first is the applicant must hire a qualified traffic engineer, conduct a formal traffic count at 6 months and 18 months following the opening of the new access. And what that is speaking to is, as part of the replat, which is the next agenda item, there is a restricted access that is being broken or being proposed to be broken on the north 150 feet of the property, which I'll pull up the plat, even though that's not what we're talking about just yet, but just so you have some context. So here's the proposed plat. There is a break-in access that is proposed along the north 105 feet of the property, and this is to alleviate some of the congestion that was anticipated with the full build-out of the site on Edison and Ohio. So the concern is that if you don't have a break-in access along Ohio, that Edison and Ohio will become over-inundated with congestion. And so one of the conditions, again, is that the traffic be studied 6 months after a certificate of occupancy is issued for the proposed development for Salina family. The second is that the applicant is responsible for funding 100% of the first 2 monitoring periods. And the third is that additional counts may be required within the first 5 years, which would be funded on a 50-50 cost share basis. And so this would be an agreement that we would have to work out with the City Commission once this item gets to them. In conformance to the comprehensive plan, the comprehensive plan has this area being shown as part of the commercial land use category, which the commercial land use category does have C3 zoning as an appropriate zoning district for that for that land use. Additionally, the rezoning meets the specific location criteria set out in the comprehensive plan, which dictates that commercial sites should be located adjacent to arterials to avoid congestion, which Ohio Street is one of our main arterials that we have within the city of Salina. So in summary, resolving the split zoning is a foundational best practice in current planning, and it would ensure that uniform application of the zoning code across a single development lot instead of currently we have 2 different zoning codes, preventing administrative burden and enforcing 2 different distinct sets of development standards on the property. Furthermore, retiring the 1979 PDD is appropriate, and that the C3 uses would reinforce the commercial and institutional character along the west side of this corridor of Ohio Street. And there is no compelling planning rationale to reserve the isolated PDD I2 zoning for the property, as it's become outdated and no longer necessary because the use has changed or is changing. So we do have on page 10 a list of findings that I'll read to you just so everybody's clear of what they are. The first is that the proposed map amendment replaces an obsolete 1979 PDD tailored to a vacated utility storage yard. The second is that the property is currently split zone, which inhibits unified site planning and cohesive redevelopment. The third is that extending the existing C3 zoning across the entire 9.274 acres, which is the entire site, is a logical expansion of the commercial corridor along Ohio Street. The rezoning eliminates the pocket of industrial zoning in the immediate area, bringing the site into conformity with the uniform commercial and institutional character of the west side of South Ohio Street. Number 4, the C3 district has a higher development standard than the I2 district. Specifically, the C3 district requires that all businesses, service, and storage activities within the district be conducted within a completely enclosed building, whereas the I2 district permits exterior operations and outdoor storage yards. Furthermore, the I2 district allows for unpaved gravel parking and storage surfaces and does not mandate site landscaping. In contrast, the development under the C3 district requires fully paved off-street parking and formal street frontage landscaping. Because of these stricter development standards, the applicant's proposed rezoning will result in an aesthetic and functional upgrade to the neighborhood, ensuring the replacement of the existing chain link fences, gravel surfacing, and exposed utility materials with a fully enclosed commercial institutional facility, with paved parking spaces and landscaped front yards. Number 5, adequate public infrastructure already exists to serve the redevelopment. And 6, the proposed C3 zoning district classification is consistent with the future land use map designation of the comprehensive plan, which indicates this property as commercial, a category that supports both the locational criteria as well as the uses. So with that, planning does have a few alternatives for the commission. The planning commission could, 1, recommend approval of the C3 zoning for this request area. Number 2, the Planning Commission could recommend a lesser change or a planned commercial district such as PC3 with a list of prescribed limitations instead of the requested C3. The Planning Commission could recommend that the applicant be postponed if additional information is needed. This action would require the Planning Commission to cite a specific date and time of their postponement. Number 4, the Planning Commission could recommend denial of the rezoning request, providing appropriate findings are made. Staff would recommend approval of the requested zoning map amendment from PDD I2 to C3. We'll take any questions you might have, and we also have representatives from Salina family in the room, as well as city staff, for any specific questions that may come up.
Thank you, Dustin. I know that was a lot of information. Any questions specifically for staff from commissioners before we hear from the applicant?
One on the the traffic counts. So if they do these counts at 6 months, at 12 months, what's the guideline on whether they're going to require different traffic patterns or anything?
Yeah, we do have Public Works engineering staff in the room to help answer that question. Brian, if you would.
My name's Brian Clinton. I'm a civil engineer in the Public Works Department. And what we're looking for is just any negative type of traffic scenarios that come up. And so if there's a significant increase in the amount of traffic over what was projected, that the development was projected to go into that development, that would be one consideration. If we see an increase in accidents, that might be another consideration where we need to address the traffic in a manner, whether it's a signalized intersection, whether it's modifying that access point onto Ohio, whether it's adding a turn lane on Edison to allow right turns and left turns and separate those. So those are kind of all the things that we would be looking at. And it's all based on the traffic counts and the traffic study, looking at what that level of service is for the traffic that's traveling on Edison and also at that entrance onto Ohio.
So if that warrants a traffic light or something different, is that the city's cost then to implement that?
No. So that's one of the conditions that we're, along with the traffic counts, the other condition would be a share of that cost and identifying, is it just the traffic that's being generated by the Salina Family Health Center that's adding to that traffic, or are there other developments that have occurred since that time that are also adding? But so we would have to evaluate where that traffic's coming from, who's generating that traffic, and assign the costs appropriately. But I didn't want it to just fall all on the city if there was an increase in traffic that is different than what the traffic study had projected.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Any other questions? All right, I would offer a chance for the applicant to come and speak on this. And if you would, please state your name, just for the record, and we will listen intently.
Good afternoon. My name is Max Taylor. I'm an architect with Health Facilities Group out of Wichita, Kansas, and the project manager for the proposed project. My firm began our involvement with Salina Health Education Foundation in 2021. Part of our initial process was evaluating the constraints of the existing building, surrounding site, and then reviewing alternate locations within the city. In 2021 and 2022, several alternate locations for the new building were looked at, which eventually led the project team to this piece of property that we're meeting on today. We believe this property on Ohio Street best equips Salina Health to continue supporting the health of this community and meeting the needs of people and patients of all backgrounds. Just here in support of the preliminary plat and the rezoning, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Taylor?
What are your thoughts on the traffic study?
I'm glad that we did one. I think it's fair to ask with the increase of the volume. I know the previous concern was that the energy building had 50 or so employees there, and that people coming in and out of this site. I think the other thing that we looked at was dumping everybody to the south back onto Edison, going to help or worsen the situation. I think providing the access onto Ohio, the way the current plans are drawn, we'll have, if you're coming southbound on Ohio, be able to take a right-hand turn directly into the site at that new access break. We also have, if you're exiting the site back onto Ohio, a left-hand lane out where cars can queue up a little bit more. We'll have a right-hand lane where you can turn right onto Ohio. That'll help traffic flow overall more smoothly, is my belief.
Thank you.
How many employees will they have, do you plan on?
170?
Yeah, how about start with 150 up to 170.
Yeah.
170?
Yeah, with growth up to 170.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience, go ahead, who would like to speak?
I'm Trevor Spleakle with BHC Civil Engineering, a Pape Dawson company. We've been recently acquired 7101 College Boulevard, Overland Park. So I'm the civil engineer, project manager on the team. So I wanted to give you guys a chance to ask questions. Otherwise, I'm in support of the rezoning. As the city's mentioned, it is an upgrade to aesthetics. We also handle landscape and grading. So that is things we've taken into consideration for the neighbors and the site in general. Yeah, as Max said, in support of the rezoning, and I wanted to give you guys a chance for any traffic questions or anything else site related.
Thank you. Any specific questions for Mr. Spleakle? Did I say that name correctly?
Spleakle, yeah.
Spleakle.
Yeah.
I saw it several names in the report, or several times, and I wanted to.
I have to ask, do you have relatives in north central Kansas?
I do. That is, I assume that's how you gotta say the name, honestly.
Yep.
Belleville
Yep.
area. Yeah.
We'll make sure we get that in the record for you.
Do that. Do that.
Anybody else who would like to speak on this topic? Anybody online, Dustin?
We do have one representative online. I'm not sure if they'd like to speak on the topic or not, if they're just observing. So far, they haven't indicated any desire to speak.
All right. With that in mind, I will bring it back up to the commission for discussion or a possible motion.
Mr. Chairman, this looks pretty straightforward. I would make a motion that we approve application ZMA 25-004.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of application ZMA 25-004. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries. We'll make that recommendation to the city commission. That is all of our,
And that was based on staff's findings, is that correct? I want to
Based on
confirm
this.
that. Okay.
I don't want to speak for the motion maker, but
Yes, that is based on the findings that staff presented, yes.
And the second concurs?
Yes.
Okay.
You
Yes.
concur on that?
Yes.
All right, very good. All right, that'll lead us to our next item, which is a companion item. Along with the proposed rezoning, Salina family is also working to replat the property. So the existing property is part of the surveyor's plat number 52, which is a 1938 subdivision. And since that's time, and I've got the plat on the screen. Since that time, Edison Place has been dedicated through separate instrument and isn't shown on the plat. Additionally, you'll notice that the west boundary is just simply the Smoky Hill River, and so it's a little bit undefined or lacks a little bit of clarity on the west end, and there are no utility easements, and there is no break-in access. And so in order to address all of those separate items, what the Salina Family Organization is proposing is a replat that would kind of clean up the plat, so to speak. It would have the dimensions of the south boundary with Edison Place. It would have the proposed break-in access that we talked about briefly with rezoning at the north end of the property along Ohio. It would have a marked and measured and dimensioned west boundary along the river, and it also have proposed easements for all of the public utilities as well as the drainage easements. So that's the nature of the request and why the rezone or the replat in this case is important. So the subdivision design, the particular property is 9.274 acres. It's a single lot and block subdivision, and it would be compliant with the proposed C3 zoning that you just voted on just a moment ago. Street access, it would have street access, it would retain existing street access along Edison Place, and there's a proposed break-in access along the north 105 feet of Ohio Street. And the street itself, the streets are existing streets, so they meet all of the existing criteria for the subdivision regulations, with the exception that a sidewalk along Edison Place needs to be extended. So if you can see on the aerial photo, the sidewalk does wrap around, coming to south on Ohio, comes west a little bit, and then ends. And so a public sidewalk would have to be extended along the entire frontage of Edison Place on the south end of the property, and then it would be in full compliance. Again, the traffic study does have some conditions that the city engineer would like to have carried over as part of this development. Again, it's the applicant must hire a qualified traffic engineer to conduct the formal traffic counts 6 months and 18 months following the opening of the proposed development or the certificate of occupancy basically being issued. Number 2, the applicant is responsible for funding 100% of these first 2 monitoring periods. And number 3, additional counts may be required within the first 5 years, which would be funded 50-50 on a cost share basis. There are no proposed street name changes because both streets exist and the names are not being changed. The lot itself meets and exceeds the C3 district requirements. The C3 district requires at least a minimum area of 1 acre for that district. In this case, the site alone is over 9 acres, and so it has ample space to meet the C3 district requirements as well as the proposed development that Salina family has in mind. Utilities and service. There is a 24-inch sanitary sewer on the east in Ohio Street. There's also an 8-inch line. And again, I mentioned earlier, there is a proposed line, a 6-inch water line that would connect to Ohio, run down Edison Place, and then go to the south on westbound and connect to Westchester. So there is a looping that is being proposed for a water line to have water redundancy for the property. That's especially important in emergency situations where there's a fire or some other need for water on the site. Drainage, because the existing site has the large gravel storage yard, the engineers in their drainage study have concluded and determined that there will be a decrease in water runoff from the current development pattern that is on the site. And most of the water is going to the Smoky Hill River. Although there is a slight increase going to Ohio, it is within tolerances of what the system can handle, so there is no additional detention going to be required for the site. And for the services, we did send out the proposed redevelopment or replat of the property to all of our local agencies and confirmed from USD 305, the Salina Fire Department, Cox Communications, Kansas Gas Services, Salina Parks and Rec, Salina Police, as well, and Salina Utilities, that the proposed replat will have no issues according to what their needs are, and that the layout and location is sufficient. Easements and right-of-way, there are no additional rights-of-way being dedicated for this particular plat. As I noted earlier, Edison Place was dedicated through separate instrument, and so this plat is going to clean it up with the south boundary matching that dedication, so there is no additional right-of-way being dedicated. There are some utility easements that are being dedicated, and all of those easements are at least 20 feet in width. There's one along the north property boundary, there's one along the south and east, and there's also a drainage easement of varying widths along the river channel to the west. The proposed improvements, there is the water line improvement and the sidewalk improvement, and those would be the only public improvements that would be part of this development, and all of that would be phased in a single development when the Salina family develops the property. Special assessments and cost recoveries, there are no special assessments or cost recoveries. The only expense or fee that would potentially impact this project is the traffic study and potential traffic improvements that we've discussed with the proposed access from the traffic study. Conformance with the comprehensive plan. Again, the plat conforms to the comprehensive plan's locational criteria, and the project reinforces the commercial and institutional character along the west side of South Ohio. So the proposed replat is a necessary and logical step in redeveloping an obsolete industrial site. Resolving split zoning is a foundational best practice. From a subdivision perspective, the site design is favorable. It utilizes existing infrastructure, improves pedestrian connectivity, decreases stormwater runoff impacts of the surrounding basin. We do have a full page of criteria or suggested findings based on the criteria that are reviewed by the board on page 8. And the Planning Commission has the following alternatives. 1, you could approve the preliminary plat of the Salina Family Addition subject to staff recommendations. Number 2, you could postpone consideration of the preliminary plat to a specific date if the commission requires additional information. Number 3, you could deny preliminary plat, the preliminary plat, citing specific findings as to how the plat fails to comply with the plat review criteria and attachment number 5, which is in your packet. And we do have a number of recommendations or conditions that we would recommend with approval. So staff would recommend approval of the preliminary plat subject to the following conditions. And all of these are in the the staff report with a sixth that was recently added based on a memo we received from the utilities. So number one is approval of publication of the ordinance for the zoning map amendment ZMA 25004 by the City Commission, establishing the uniform C3 zoning district across the entire lot. So that is the item that we just previously heard. Number two is the developer should submit public improvement plans for the design and construction of the new public water main in Edison Place to be approved by the city engineer prior to issuance of a building permit. The developer shall be responsible for the construction of the public sidewalk along the north side of Edison Place adjacent to the property frontage. Number four, prior to the issuance of any permits, the applicant shall enter into a formal agreement with the city incorporating the binding conditions of the traffic impact study approval letter dated August 14th, 2025. And those are the potential impacts that Mr. Clennon spoke about in his assessment of the traffic impact study. Number five, submission and approval of a final plat that substantially conforms to the approved preliminary plat layout prior to issuance of any building permits. And number six, this is new and not in your packet, is prior to the installation of the construction of any new public utilities, the Kansas Department of Health and Education, KDHE, must review and approve the proposed construction plans for all new public utilities. And with that, staff would take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dustin. Any commissioner have a question for staff in regards to this item? Seeing none, does the applicant wish to speak on this? I know you've already been up once. Do you wish to add anything to it?
I'm good.
Got two thumbs up for those online. Anybody in the audience who would like to make a comment on this item?
Yes.
And I don't see anybody here or online.
We do not have anyone online that appears to want to speak on this item.
Okay. All right, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion or possible motion.
I'd move we approve application PP 25-004 as presented with the conditions, including number 6 that Dustin mentioned.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve application PP 25-004. This is with the 5 conditions that are laid out in the packet and the number 6 that was added verbally by Dustin. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. And that carries. We'll move us to 3.3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we get started, I'm going to pass out a couple of handouts, that being a paper copy of the Fire Marshal Joe Kovacic's memo, as well as Brian Clennon's memo, and then a side-by-side comparison of the final plat conditions from the October 15th, 2024 meeting, along with the proposed conditions for the current resolution. So I'm going to pass those out, and then we'll get started.
Trevor?
They need to go out. You need to be
Are you related to Ed?
Yeah, he is my great.
Is he still alive?
So my grandpa's Raymond. And then this is kind of, I know that.
I know your dad, and I served on the school board up there with your uncle Ed. Yeah.
They want to have,
Yep.
they want to modify the conditions of approval so they can have a footing foundation. So I would stick around for this one, yeah. Sorry, Brian. Thank you for being here.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. The item before you is case number P24-1A. And just a quick note, it is the application has been assigned that case number to reflect its direct connection to the October 15th, 2024 final plat approval under that same case number. Just wanted to note that for the record. This is a request to consider the adoption of resolution number 26-01, modifying condition number 1 and condition number 4 of the conditions of approval of application P24-1A for Lot 1, Block 1 of the Windy Creek Addition final plat, which was approved on October 15th, 2024. This resolution incorporates the previous conditions of approval and establishes new conditions to allow the issuance of a building permit for non-vertical construction work, which includes construction of footings and foundations for the building and fuel canopies, installation of underground fuel tanks, extension of site utilities, and various grading activities to occur on Lot 1, Block 1 prior to issuance of a certificate of completion for all required public improvements serving Phase 1. To provide some background, on October 15th, 2024, the Planning Commission approved the final plat of the Windy Creek Addition, a one-lot commercial subdivision located on the west side of I-35 north of Waterwell Road. As part of its action, the Commission adopted conditions of approval. This included condition number 4, which requires issuance of a certificate of completion for all public improvements serving Phase 1, including public streets, sanitary sewer line, operational water line, and fire hydrants by the city engineer prior to the issuance of a building permit for Lot 1, Block 1 of the Windy Creek Addition. Southlands Development LLC was the applicant for the final plat application back in 2024. Maverick Convenience Stores has since acquired Lot 1, Block 1 of the Windy Creek Addition and is the owner and applicant for the current request. The developer, Maverick Convenience Stores, seeks authorization to commence with the construction of footings and foundations, underground fuel tank installation, site utility, extensions, and grading activities, concurrently with the construction of Marcella Drive and public utility installation. The intent is to ensure efficient coordination of site development activities and minimize delays in the overall project timeline. Because the conditions were originally adopted by the Planning Commission, modification of these conditions requires your review and approval. The Engineering Division and Fire Department have reviewed this request and provided conditions for approval. The Engineering Division's comments require that the site construction entrance must be relocated as far south as practicable to minimize construction traffic traveling over the aggregate base from Marcella Drive. And so if you see on the west or on the left side of your screen, the red where Dustin's cursor is, that is Marcella Drive. So engineering is requesting that the access road for construction purposes be located as close to, as far south on the lot as possible to avoid having to drive up the entire extent of Marcella Drive. If the city determines the subgrade damage occurs or soil is tracked onto the aggregate base, the roadway contractor shall be responsible for corrective measures. Those measures include removal of the affected aggregate base, recompaction of the subgrade, and placement and compaction of new aggregate base prior to placement of the concrete pavement. The Fire Department also reviewed the request. The Fire Department's conditions stipulate that no vertical construction can take place until the fire hydrants are in service. That will provide fire protection to the lots being built on and meet the distance requirements from the 2018 IFC. There must be a 500-foot maximum distance between fire hydrants, and then additionally, per D102.1 of the IFC, the access road will need to be able to support a load of 75,000 pounds and must be confirmed by an engineer prior to the city, or per the city amendment for D 102.1. So that would mean that before any vertical construction was permitted, the fire hydrants would need to be in place. And furthermore, in order to drive on the aggregate base for Marcella, that aggregate base would need to be able to support a 75,000 pound fire truck. Staff would note that there was a sentence from Condition 1 approved by the Planning Commission at their October 15, 2024 meeting that was omitted in the approval letter. The omitted sentence states an internal public water line and fire hydrants must be installed and operational prior to the issuance of any building permits in Phase 1. Staff recommends the Planning Commission include modification of this condition as part of their request. Staff did speak with the Director of Utilities as well as Engineering and Fire once we noticed this sentence in Condition 1, and we would note that the water line for the site is being located in the right-of-way west of where the yellow line is, on the east side of Marcella Drive. So it's around right where Dustin's cursor is. And so the extension of utilities is connecting running water from the existing water or the water line that's going to be constructed to the building. So the Director of Utilities felt comfortable with the fire department's condition that all fire safety measures must be in place before vertical construction commences. In analyzing this request, the proposed modification is specific to the non-vertical stages of construction and does not permit vertical construction or occupancy prior to the completion of the necessary public infrastructure. The proposed modification does not eliminate the requirement for a certificate of completion for all Phase 1 public improvements prior to vertical construction, and the intent of the original condition ensuring adequate public infrastructure is in place before the building is constructed is preserved. The staff has found the possible findings in support of approval. Those can be found on pages 3 and 4 of your staff report. Number 1, the applicant Maverick has requested modifications to the conditions of approval of the Windy Creek Addition final plat from condition number 1 and number 4 to allow the issuance of a building permit for early stage construction activities, specifically the construction of footings and foundations, installation of underground fuel tanks, extension of site utilities, and grading prior to the issuance of a certificate of completion for all Phase 1 public improvements. 2, the requested early construction activities do not constitute vertical construction and do not by themselves generate the occupancy load, fire suppression demand, or emergency access needs that the original condition was designed to ensure were met before construction began. 3, the Public Works Department Engineering Division has reviewed the request and has determined that subject to conditions protecting the integrity of the aggregate base for Marcella Drive during construction, there is no objection to the issuance of a building permit for the construction of footings and foundations for the building and fuel canopies, installation of underground fuel tanks, installation of site utilities, and various grading activities prior to the completion of the road infrastructure. 4, the fire department has reviewed the request and supports it subject to conditions requiring that no vertical construction occur until fire hydrants serving the development are operational and meet the spacing requirements of IFC 2018 Table C102.1, and that the construction access road meet the load capacity requirements of IFC 2018 Section D102.1. Number 5, the proposed modification does not eliminate the requirement for a certificate of completion for all Phase 1 public improvements prior to vertical construction. The intent of the original condition, ensuring adequate public infrastructure is in place before the building is constructed, is preserved. 6, The conditions recommended by the Engineering Division and Fire Department provide adequate safeguards to protect public infrastructure and ensure fire and life safety during the early construction period. And 7, the proposed modification is consistent with the public interest and with the general purposes of the subdivision regulations as set forth in Section 36(4) of the Salina Code, and that it allows orderly and efficient development while maintaining the protection of public infrastructure and public safety that the original conditions were intended to provide. The Planning Commission would have the following options in consideration of this request. Number 1, you could adopt resolution number 2601 as presented, finding that the modified conditions of approval for Lot 1, Block 1 of the Windy Creek Addition for non-vertical construction activities are reasonable, and establishing a comprehensive list of final plat conditions that incorporates the original plat conditions with modifications and the new conditions included in staff's recommended conditions by the Engineering Division and Fire Department. 2, you could adopt resolution number 2601 with amendments if the commission finds that additional or modified safeguards are necessary to protect the public interest. 3, you could postpone consideration of resolution number 2601 to a future meeting if the commission determines that the additional information is needed from staff or the applicant to make an informed decision. Or 4, you could deny the request to adopt resolution number 2601. This action would leave the original condition in full effect, and a building permit could not be issued until a certificate of completion for all public improvements serving Phase 1 is issued. Staff would recommend that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2601, modifying condition number 1 and condition number 4 of the conditions of approval of application P24-1A for Lot 1, Block 1 of the Windy Creek Addition final plat, approved on October 15th, 2024, incorporating the previous conditions of approval and establishing new conditions to allow issuance of a building permit for work including construction of footings and foundations for the building and fuel canopies, installation of underground fuel tanks, extension of site utilities, and various grading activities to occur on Lot 1, Block 1, prior to issuance of a certificate of completion for all required public improvements serving Phase 1, subject to the following conditions. And as I handed out to you, as we were covering the conditions on the comparison document, the 4-page stapled document, you'll find the original plat conditions as were approved in October of 2024. Next to it, you'll find the proposed plat conditions. For the proposed plat conditions, we have maintained the same 8 plat conditions that were listed in the original final plat, with 2 modifications, one being to condition number 1, where the line previously stated an internal public water line and fire hydrants must be installed and operational prior to the issuance of any building permits in Phase 1. And number 2, the revised condition states an internal public water line and fire hydrants must be installed and operational prior to the issuance of any building permits for vertical construction in Phase 1, Lot 1. Condition number 2 is the same condition that a temporary turnaround shall be provided on the northern terminus of Marcella Drive on the final plat drawing. 3 is the same condition that all utilities in the subdivision shall be placed underground. 4, the original condition stated a certificate of completion for all public improvements serving Phase 1, public streets, sewer line, and water line loop must be issued by the city engineer prior to issuance of a building permit for Lot 1, Block 1 of the Windy Creek Addition, where the new condition 4 states a building permit may be issued for non-vertical construction activities on Lot 1, Block 1 of the Windy Creek Addition, limited to the construction of footings and foundations for the building and fuel canopies, installation of underground fuel tanks, extension of site utilities, and various grading activities prior to the issuance of a certificate of completion for all required public improvements serving Phase 1. Condition 5 remains the same. Condition 6 remains the same. Condition 7 remains the same. Condition 8 required a revised final plat drawing containing all the revisions. Condition has been satisfied and the plat for Windy Creek has been recorded. And then the new conditions. Condition number 9, the site construction entrance must be relocated as far south as practicable to minimize construction traffic traveling over the aggregate base from Marcella Drive and to reduce the potential for damage prior to final roadway construction. 10, if the city determines subgrade damage occurs or soil is tracked onto the aggregate base, the roadway contractor shall be responsible for corrective measures. These measures include removal of the affected aggregate base, recompaction of the subgrade, and placement and compaction of new aggregate base prior to placement of the concrete pavement. 11, no vertical construction can take place until the fire hydrants providing fire protection to the development are in service and meet the distance requirements of Table C102.1 of the IFC 2018. This condition establishes the minimum fire protection standard that must be satisfied as part of the certificate of completion required prior to vertical construction. It does not authorize vertical construction independent of that certificate of completion requirement. 12, the maximum allowed distance between hydrants per table C102.1 of the IFC is 500 feet. 13, per section D102.1 of the IFC 2018, the access road must be able to support a load of 75,000 pounds and must be confirmed by an engineer per the city's amendment to section D102.1. And condition 14, that a certificate of completion for all public improvements serving Phase 1, public streets, sanitary sewer line, operational water line, and fire hydrants must be issued by the city engineer prior to vertical construction taking place. And with that, staff is available for any questions you might have, and representatives from Public Works Engineering and the Fire Marshal are here to answer any questions as well. And the engineer for Maverick, Kason Schwalm, is on Zoom. So.
Thank you. Any questions for staff after that presentation from the commissioners?
I got one. I was wondering if there's a sufficient water line running down Waterwell Road that it's going to feed the fire hydrants and the water line to the place? And how far away does it have to come from? And is there a timeline for when that's going to be put in?
Yes, this is Kason Swallen with Olson, working with Maverick on this project. I do want to point out there are a couple of Maverick representatives in-house there with you as well. So I can't tell if somebody's stepping up to the mic or not, but I can definitely address if I need to.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so the water line, I'll tell you, they are having to extend basically from the middle of the street to feed the line that's going to feed the Windy Creek development. I mean, you can kind of pick it out on your screen there. I mean, there is a sufficiently sized water main that we are using to feed the whole development. And we are currently showing, just for our site development, I think we've got it listed as basically a 2-inch branch off of the, I believe it's an 8-inch water line. I'd have to open up these separate public improvement plans just quickly to double check that, and I will here. But those facilities will be in place. I mean, the work is already underway on the road, and certain aspects of the utilities are already, being put in place. We're kind of stuck close to the right-of-way line there, but I know they are getting some work further north of Waterwell accomplished. And then just back checking here, 2.3. Yeah, so that will be a new 8-inch main that is fed there along the east side of Marcella Drive that extends north.
And then I'll just go ahead and comment that, as you noted on here, the map, it shows the existing water line there. There's a hydrant icon right about in the middle of the screen there. And as we discussed with Martha Tasker, the Director of Utilities, about this to make sure that they could write a memo stating that it was good, or make a statement that it was good to approve. She did note that these are just service lines that are going to be going in. So when they talk about extending utilities, as far as we understand, off of the main, it's just service lines going into the property. So as they do footing and foundation, they get the lines to the point where they can then finish everything off in vertical construction. So there will be water to that hydrant off of that main right there, and it's possible that our fire marshal could speak to that if he knows any more specifics about the hydrant itself and the fire flows there. But I do know that main will be there with sufficient pressure to serve the hydrant that's going to be in the right of way, as far as I know. And then any water lines going into the property are just being put there now as part of the footing and foundation work of getting them in so that you can finish off once you get to vertical construction. So I don't know if that answers your question. Did you?
I will note from my end as well. It does sound like that water main is active. It sounds like the hydrant is the only thing that is still to be accomplished on that.
So it sounds real close.
Did you have more anything else with that to answer? Okay.
Anybody else? Questions for staff? All right. I would invite applicants or representatives of the applicants if they wanted to speak to this. And again, if you would, please just state your name for the record.
Lee Hollitz, the Hanson Company, 5665 Greendale Road, Johnston, Iowa. Speaking on behalf of the contractor out there doing the work, we were brought on by Maverick and the developer to try to do both these projects simultaneously to help expedite the whole overall process. So, as your question was earlier, we currently have that new extension of the water main off of Waterwell Road all the way up Marcella Drive. It's activated and live. The only part that we still need to do is just tag on the fire hydrant, just right off the right of way. So there's no additional fire lines going into the site towards the building, but that fire protection will be serviced off that hydrant. That's, can be put in a few days. So very close. And then the other item, we can work on getting enough ag base rock road through the site to support a fire truck and make sure everybody's safe. So.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks. Any specific questions for the applicant? I know we have one online as well if you need answers. I don't hear any. Anybody else from the public care to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the desk.
Mr. Chair, before decision, I just want to reiterate that your approval today is to approve resolution number 26-01. That draft resolution can be found in your packet, and I have a copy here as well. But it outlines the whereases specifically relating to the changes to condition number 1, condition number 4. States that the applicant's request and that the Public Works and Fire Department have reviewed it, and then now therefore be it resolved. It has the 14 conditions that we reviewed, and then there is a place for the chair, Mr. Farber, or shall you approve it? There's a spot for the chair to sign. So once this was established, that would effectively adopt all 14 conditions for the final plat of Lot 1, Block 1. But just wanted to clarify that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a swing at that if you're ready for a motion.
Go ahead, sir.
In regards to application P24-1A, I move that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 26-01, modifying the conditions of approval of the final plat of the Windy Creek Addition, approved October 15, 2024, and establishing an updated list of final plat conditions as set forth within the resolution.
And is that with the findings
It
as
is with
listed
the
in the staff report?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 26-01, which is going to modify the condition number 1 and condition number 4 of the conditions of approval from that prior application P24-1A, and is going to not only supersede but replace that. Motion and second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries. And you guys do have a copy of the newer or the updated conditions on that, correct? I want to make sure everybody's on the same page with that. Perfect. Thank you. That will bring us to item 3.4.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Application M26001 is a application filed by Derek Lee on behalf of Overlook Estates Addition. And it is requesting approval of a resolution modifying the findings of fact and conditions of approval for the Overlook Estates Addition that was originally under application P034D to release a restrictive covenant requiring automatic fire sprinklers in all new dwellings based on the city's adoption of the 2018 International Fire Code. And we do have some slides here. Okay. So to give a little bit of background, Overlook Estates Addition is a 52.9 acre residential subdivision. It's lots 1 through 12 in Block 1 of the Overlook Estates Addition. It's located to the south of River Run Addition and west of Great Life Golf and Fitness at the south end of Overlook Drive. This was approved in 2022 and 2023 under application P034D for the final plat and application PDD 03-1D for the PDD zoning. The PDD zoning was established through ordinance number 22-11134, which the only variations from the zoning regulations in that ordinance were really for side yard setbacks and some setbacks in the subdivision. The fire sprinkler requirement was not part of the PDD zoning ordinance, so this is just to give a little bit of a heads up here. The action itself is fairly simple, but there are a few different pieces of code and regulations in place, and so there are a couple cases involved in this. So if I'm jumping back and forth in case numbers, it's just to try to explain certain ones come into play and certain ones kind of relate to each other and how this all comes together. Okay. Kind of continuing with that background, the original approval, there was a challenge in the design based on topography and the geography of the subdivision that created a challenge with fire access. So the overall subdivision is a peninsula-shaped geometry and topography. It prevented meeting the 2-access separation requirement under the then applicable IFC, which was the 2012 version. The 2012 IFC Appendix D 104.3 required a secondary access road at a distance of no less than 1/2 of the maximum diagonal dimension of the property from the primary access. So that was a standard that the site could not physically meet. You have to go find the primary access, find the furthest point from it, and then basically your 2 entrances have to be separated by half of that distance. So it varies by subdivision. So it's a formula you have to apply to each subdivision individually and then work out what your separation requirement is. So a secondary access route exists. A secondary access exists on Overlook Estates Addition. It existed at that time. It was intended to go across the Great Life Golf and Fitness property and connect up to the roundabout at Marymount Road. The Overlook Estates Addition plat actually platted an access easement on Lot 11 of the subdivision, but that access just terminates at the boundary of the subdivision. That was never followed through on to establish an easement across Great Life at that time because the remoteness of those two access points didn't meet the IFC. So, like I said, that secondary access route existed. It was a plan. It didn't get completed. The fire marshal granted a modification under the 2012 IFC section 104.8 for the remoteness requirement based on practical difficulties posed by the topography. So compliance with the 2012 IFC, the 2 access roads required for developments exceeding 30 units was achieved via an exception 1, which waived the 2 access requirement when approved automatic fire sprinklers are installed in all dwellings. So, that text is very small, but the real short timeline here of the case is on March 21st, 2023, the Planning Commission approved the final plat of the Overlook Estates Addition, and that included a condition number 10 that required automatic fire sprinkler systems in all new dwellings in the subdivision. Then shortly thereafter, staff noted that there's a state statute that actually prohibits that. So prohibits the requirement of fire sprinklers in residential dwellings. So on April 18th, 2023, the Planning Commission repealed condition 10 that was placed on the final plat approval, because KSA 12-16-219C prohibits municipalities from requiring sprinklers as a plat condition. They then made new findings of fact that the developer voluntarily offered to record a restrictive covenant requiring fire sprinklers in all dwellings within the subdivision. So that covenant was recorded on November 9th, 2023, and then on November 4th, 2025, the Planning Commission adopted resolution number 25-01, which they adopted that, modifying the conditions of approval for the plat to allow issuance of a building permit for vertical construction on Lot 2 prior to the completion of a water line loop. It is not related to the fire sprinklers. It's just a case history here. Prior to the completion of the water line loop to Markley Road. Then on December 22nd, 2025, the City Commission adopted the 2018 International Fire Code via Ordinance 25-11266, including a local amendment to Section D104.3, establishing a flat 300-foot minimum separation standard for secondary fire apparatus roads. So essentially, in December of last year, we adopted a new IFC, and we made a local amendment at that point that just established a flat 300-foot distance that's required for fire access roads. Instead of having to apply that formula that was half the diagonal distance of any subdivision, it's just a flat number now. So that is really what sets the groundwork for this request here, is that change. So the secondary emergency access road is located on Lot 11 of Overlook Estates Addition, and it carries you from Overlook Drive across Lot 11, and it ends at the east boundary of Overlook Estates Addition, which is adjacent to Great Life Golf and Fitness. Okay. Okay. Sure. Yeah. We have a graphic of an easement that was recorded on Great Life, and that one might show a little bit better here, so we can look at that. So there's a red line here on this graphic that we're looking at, and there's a dashed vertical line there. So to the west of that is the Overlook Estates Addition. Can you go down right there? So right where that connects, just to the west is Lot 11, and there is an established access easement. I believe it's 30 feet wide across Lot 11 that gets you to Overlook Drive. So we have the plat here, just for reference, north. Oh, Okay.
I'm trying to turn it so it works.
You can just do it like that. It's fine. North is to.
There it is.
Okay. North is up now. You want to, so this is looking at the access easement. There's a red arrow there that takes you over into Great Life Golf Fitness. You want to switch back there? So then this establishes an access path that gets you through the Great Life Golf and Fitness parking lot and up to Marymount Road. So you connect to a public street.
So it takes you up here to this roundabout.
Yep. So the secondary emergency access road is located on lot 11 on the Overlook Estates Addition plat, and that connects over to Great Life Golf and Fitness. Then on February 5th of this year, there was a grant of permanent emergency access easement that was executed across the Great Life Golf and Fitness property by Pestinger Enterprises, LLC, and that's been executed and recorded. And that establishes a continuous 20-foot wide route for a fire apparatus from Lot 11 across Great Life property up to Marymount Road. So there is a connection from Overlook Drive across that and up to Marymount Road. The separation distance between the primary entrance at the River Run Parkway and the secondary emergency access is approximately 1,130 feet. And so that 1,130 feet does exceed the 300-foot minimum requirement under the new locally amended 2018 IFC. So that's just to establish that under the current code, it does meet the requirement. Previously, it did not. The applicant's request is requesting release of the declaration of restrictive covenant, and the basis is that the city's adoption of the 2018 IFC via Ordinance 25-11266 and the local amendment to Section D 104.3 eliminate the regulatory condition that necessitated that voluntary covenant. The Overlook Estates Addition now satisfies the two-access separation standard by right under the currently adopted fire code. And so the applicant wishes to withdraw the voluntary offer of the covenant that they previously had in place. The covenant's own terms require approval of both the Planning Commission and the governing body of the City of Salina prior to any modification or release. And then in Chapter 42, the zoning regulations, the PDD provisions require more or less the same requirement, which is that covenants may be modified, removed, or released only with the consent of the Board of Commissioners after a public hearing before and recommendations by the Planning Commission. So holding a public hearing, and we would have to take a recommendation from the Planning Commission forward to the City Commission for them to make a decision on this. This public hearing satisfies that procedural requirement, and the Planning Commission's recommendation would be transmitted to the City Commission for final action on the covenant release. So the Planning Commission today is being asked to consider a single action with two related components. First is to determine whether the Overlook Estates Addition now satisfies the fire apparatus access requirements of the subdivision regulations under the currently adopted 2018 IFC without the need for residential fire sprinklers. Second, based on that determination, the Planning Commission is considering adoption of Resolution Number 26-02, which memorializes revised findings of fact and recommends that the City Commission approve release of the recorded restrictive covenant requiring fire sprinklers in new dwellings. So the Planning Commission is not being asked to amend the PDD zoning ordinance, and no changes to land use, densities, setbacks, or any other zoning conditions are being proposed with this. So as far as staff analysis, adoption of the 2018 IFC, including the local amendment to Section D 104.3, is the changed condition that forms the basis of this request, which is that a flat 300-foot minimum separation replaces the prior diagonal formula. Existing secondary access route, now supported by the recorded easement, provides approximately 1,130 feet of separation between the two access points for the subdivision, which satisfies that 300-foot minimum requirement. The Fire Marshal has reviewed the proposal for compliance with the 2018 IFC, requirements and the fire lane designation requirements. So there is a memorandum in your packet that was sent out to you with this item that provides more detail on that from the fire marshal directly. And essentially, the fire marshal is in support of approval subject to some conditions. The applicant states that the voluntary covenant was offered solely to address the 2012 IFC remoteness hardship, which has been eliminated by the 2018 IFC adoption. And staff agrees that continuing to require the covenant could impose an unnecessary burden that no longer is really supported by the conditions of the regulations themselves. The PDD modification process is what is being followed here. We are looking at the findings of fact from the final plat case here, but we're following a process that comes more out of the PDD part of Chapter 42 because it requires a public hearing, so it's a slightly different standard than a typical final plat. So just to kind of explain that part, we're holding a public hearing. You're looking at a final plat finding of fact. The approval of that does have some new conditions of approval wrapped in, but it's a little bit unusual as far as the process we're going through here. The subdivision's compliance with the subdivision regulations and the currently adopted fire code is the substantive determination before the commission today. So as far as staff's recommended findings, these are too small to see on the screen. We have 9 findings. These are integrated into that resolution that's in front of you as well. So the original plat approval relied on a finding that the fire protection requirements under the subdivision regulations were satisfied through the voluntary sprinkler covenant, accepted in lieu of a fully conforming secondary access road under the 2012 IFC. At the time of the original approval, the existing secondary access via the Great Life property, which again that was a plan to move forward with that, but that easement was only across Great Life was only established actually this year because that access didn't meet the 2012 fire code. So that secondary access could not be satisfied at satisfy the 2012 IFC remoteness requirement. So it could not serve as the basis for meeting fire protection requirements without the sprinkler covenant at the time the final plat was approved. The adoption of the 2018 IFC, including the local amendment, establishes a flat 300-foot minimum and constitutes a changed regulatory condition that eliminates the deficiency that necessitated the covenant in the first place. The existing secondary access road, supported by the additional easement that was granted across Great Life, provides an approximately 1,130-foot separation between the 2 access points, which satisfies the 300-foot minimum. The fire marshal's memorandum confirms that the secondary access route satisfies the applicable physical requirements of the 2018 IFC, and the subdivision has adequate emergency and fire apparatus access without residential fire sprinklers. And the Planning Commission would find that the Overlook Estates Addition satisfies the requirements of Section 3654 through the existing secondary access road under the currently adopted fire code, and that automatic fire sprinklers in dwellings are no longer necessary as a means of meeting those requirements. The declaration of restrictive covenant for the easement across Great Life the declaration of restrictive covenant that required the automatic fire sprinklers in all dwellings is no longer necessary as a means of meeting the subdivision regulations. And resolution number 26-02 serves as a formal record establishing findings of fact that the Overlook Estates Addition satisfies those subdivision regulations via the secondary access. And the last finding would be that the Planning Commission recommends that the City Commission approve the release of the declaration of restrictive covenant consistent with the applicant's request and the findings established in resolution number 26-02. So with that, again, text is too small on your slides, but I will go through the 4 alternatives that you have before you. Number 1 is to adopt resolution number 26-02 as presented with staff's recommended findings, which again are incorporated into that resolution. confirming that the Overlook Estates Addition satisfies the requirements of the subdivision regulations through the existing secondary emergency access road under the currently adopted fire code, and recommend that the City Commission approve the release of the declaration of restrictive covenant recorded in Book 1432, pages 980 through 983, consistent with the applicant's request and the findings established in Resolution Number 26-02. Option 2 would be to adopt Resolution Number 26-02 with amendments, subject to any conditions that the Commission finds are necessary to ensure adequate access for emergency services and fire protection purposes, and recommend that the City Commission approve the release of the Declaration of Restrictive Covenant recorded in Book 1432, pages 980 through 983, consistent with the applicant's request and the findings established in Resolution Number 26-02. Option 3 would be to postpone consideration of Resolution Number 26-02 to a specific future meeting date if the Commission determines that additional information is needed from staff or the applicant to make an informed decision. Option 4 would be to deny adoption of Resolution Number 26-02 and recommend that the City Commission deny the release of the Declaration of Restrictive Covenant. This action would leave the original findings and the Declaration of Restrictive Covenant in full force and effect. If the Commission chooses to deny the request, the Commission needs to state the specific findings that support that denial. And as far as staff's recommendation, staff recommends approval of application M26-001. The adoption of the 2018 IFC, including that local amendment, does establish a flat 300-foot minimum, and that essentially eliminates the condition that caused them to need to voluntarily place that covenant in the first place. The existing emergency access road satisfies the separation requirement of the 2018 IFC, and the fire marshal has reviewed the access route for compliance under the 2018 IFC. And the request is supported by the information provided in the staff report and is consistent with the currently adopted fire code and the subdivision regulations. With that, there are 4 conditions of approval that are recommended. These are all based out of the fire marshal's memo. And it would be that the maintenance and upkeep of the access road and gate shall be the responsibility of Overlook Estates and Great Life Golf and Fitness. Number 2, signage displaying no parking fire lane is required on the access gate prior to the completion of the first structure in the Overlook Estates Addition. Number 3, the fire apparatus access road shall be designed and maintained to support a minimum load capacity of 75,000 pounds and shall have an all-weather driving surface. And number 4 is that fire lane markings shall be consistent with the existing markings used to designate no parking areas, and that relates to some of the markings that are existing at Great Life Golf and Fitness, just making those consistent. With that, staff is available for any questions that you have, and we do have the applicant here in the room who can speak to any other details.
Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, Dustin. Any specific questions for staff before we have the applicant come up?
I have a question. Dustin, can you pull up a map for to see kind of where that area actually is? Is that just to kind of clarify a point that So where's the entrance to the fire access at?
Go ahead and go to the parking lot on Great Life. So that line there, there's an existing access easement right where his cursor's at. It's on the north side of that yellow line that's going east-west. Okay. It's a 30-foot wide platted access easement on Overlook Estates Addition. The easement, kind of exactly how Dustin's following that cursor, it goes up through that driving lane, goes up around there and connects into that driveway and takes you up the driveway to the north to Marymount Road.
Okay. And then where's the entrance for the subdivision at?
Yeah, go zoom out a little bit. And it's where River Run Park, I think it's River Run Parkway, that roundabout on the left side of the screen there.
Okay. And so that distance kind of between the two roundabouts, that's the...
No, it's the one to the west here down to where the platted access easement
there
goes into there. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you can see where the roundabout is that would get you into the subdivision, when you had to apply that formula, you would have to take the distance all the way down to like the south corner of the subdivision, and then you have to take half that distance, and that would have been the separation requirement previously.
That was the old one.
That was under the 2012, yes. And so the distance between the Overlook Drive roundabout and down to Great Life, where the platted access easement was at, that didn't satisfy that requirement at that time.
I guess I was just checking to make sure that the entrance to both places were not in the same roundabout. That's where I was going to
No, they're not.
Okay.
And it's really about getting you out of the subdivision. And so that path does bring you back up to Marymount Road, but they are separate streets, and it's really about getting the entrances in and out of the subdivision for emergency access.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, if it was in the same roundabout, that's where it didn't make sense to me. But since
So
it's
this
clear.
just seems like a housekeeping type of an action that we're just getting
Yeah.
up with the modern fire code, and we're making our conditions meet what the modern fire code says. Is that right?
Yes, and we're not. You aren't actually going to be modifying. You aren't modifying a condition of approval, because that's why they had to remove one after the final plat approval. So that was incorporated as a finding of fact in your decision for the plat approval. The thing is under Chapter 36, there's 12 criteria that have to be met by a subdivision to approve the plat. And it's actually at the preliminary plat stage. But your final plat review is making sure that it conforms to the preliminary plat and that all those requirements are met. So this became a chain of going back further and further to make sure that every piece of it was buttoned up, because your findings of fact in approving that final plat are really saying that it meets all of the subdivision regulations. And if we're going to allow them to remove that covenant without anything in place to establish that it meets the subdivision regulations, you kind of run into a problem. So what we're trying to do is establish that whether you decide that it meets the subdivision regulations under the current code, which it to staff appears to meet, and then you'll establish that finding of fact through that resolution, which then gives them the justification needed to take forward to the city commission and have them decide on whether they release that covenant or not with your recommendation.
To clarify Commissioner Rogers' question, this cul-de-sac here is the south terminus of Marymount Road. And so the entrance to the River Run Addition and Overlook Estates comes off of this roundabout here. So this would be, if you were heading west, you'd be entering River Run Addition. That would also take you to Overlook Estates, which is at the south end of River Run. And if you were to continue south, you would take the entrance into Great Life Golf Course and also the easement for the emergency access.
So you do have to go through the same roundabout area.
You have to go through the same roundabout, yes.
You do. But that roundabout is not part of how you apply that fire code. We're talking the way that reads, the way the fire code is set up is it's the access to the subdivision. And so that part where that road connects from Marymount over to the other roundabout is actually in River Run. So you could extend that out to say you had to take a same road to go into two different entrances to any subdivision. This one's just closer. You're going down Marymount Road through this, but that's just not the way the fire code requirement is applied.
So this is just semantics. That actually is the entrance to this establishment.
It's not the entrance to the subdivision.
It's not the entrance to Overlook Estates, but
No.
it's the entrance to the other, which is actually the entrance to Overlook Estates.
Yeah. You take the same road to get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this here is the entrance to Overlook Estates.
I guess I would disagree with that. Then if that's blocked, then you can't get to any other point. So.
I think that was our discussion before when this originally came up, was if this roundabout is blocked, there's zero access. That emergency access point would be moot because you couldn't get to either access point. Chomping at the bit. Let's hear from the applicant, or Mr. Lee, representative from the applicant there.
Good afternoon, and Commission, thank you for allowing us to be here today. So clearly through this development, the original intention was always to use the same secondary access that was granted for River Run, right? The roundabout's always been adequate. As the fire marshal would be happy to tell you, there's two sides to go around a roundabout. There's no blocking them. They're going to get through. There's zero issue in their opinion. And elsewhere where you have two sides to go through, there's no possibility of them being blocked by that. So they have zero issue with that. The only reason we added this condition, or this covenant, I guess is what we had to change it to, was because the code was not current at the time. So for us to move forward, we had to add that covenant with a mechanism to remove it once code was updated and our secondary access, the same one River Run uses, was within code. So, we have already built the access road. We did that initially under the assumption that would eventually be an access road. We went and helped the city secure the easement to the secondary entrance. Certainly feel like we have done everything that we should, and I's dotted, T's crossed. Again, I see the fire department is here today. I'm sure they would be happy to give their input, but they have certainly reviewed it, signed off on it, and believe that it 100% meets code without question.
And you're okay with the 4 conditions that they've laid out for this?
We are absolutely accepting of the 4 conditions. Yes, sir.
Do you know if that signage is on that gate already? The no parking signage and fire lane?
I do not know. I know that.
Apologize. I should have driven by to look at it myself.
From there up, that's been our responsibility. We did meet the weight standard of the newest fire engine to make sure that there was all-weather surface there and that we meet those requirements. And we engineered that in from the beginning. Again, secured the easement to there, and of course, to have a sign up, we can meet that condition very quickly.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Lee? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And I do see the fire department representative here, and I would welcome his input on this as well.
Good afternoon, Joe Kovacic, Fire Marshal. So I guess one piece to this, that access road was already put in for the Overlook Estates. It was designed that way when River Run. It was there. It wasn't improved to what they've improved it to now. So to go back to the question of going through that same roundabout, when River Run was established, they're doing the exact same thing. It's always been our access. So my confusion and, how is this any different now that we're adding 12 lots, 11 lots? And now we can't use that same access road that we had before for the other houses prior to this, because it used to all be River Run until they split that. So it's been established, it's been that way since Overlook or River Run was even platted. So that was one reason why we're okay with that. The other side of that is we've had discussions with the ICC, the International Code Council, specifically on the half the distance of the diagonal, and from the people on those committees, they tell us that is designed and works for square or rectangle lots, And when we have odd-shaped lots like this one and a few others in town, it blows that formula just to pieces, and you really can't apply that to some of these. And we've always tried to. So that's kind of where we went to the 300 feet. 300 feet is a standard separation distance that we have downtown and other places. You know, we went through BAB subcommittees, public hearings with no issues with that and support on it. And I can tell you last night, I received a phone call from the National Fire Sprinkler Association, specifically on this issue. And they are in support of it also because we didn't do concessions like a lot of places would do when they put the sprinkler requirement on. A lot of times when you put the sprinkler requirement for houses onto somebody's covenants or whatever, you're able to have less hydrants. You can space your hydrants out further. You can narrow your streets. Your fire flows could go down. You know, they have several things that you could put as, we'll let you do this if you put sprinklers in. We didn't do that from the get-go. And so they are very pleased with the size of lines, water line that's already up there, water flow, the loop being put in, and that we didn't take any concessions. So to have a phone call, an hour conversation with representatives from the National Fire Sprinkler Association supporting this also is another reason why it's no heartburn to us. As far as the roundabout goes, to block the entire roundabout, one side to the other, there's really nothing up there that's going to do that. If there is, we've said it multiple times, we're going to push, pull, drag, cut, whatever we have to do to get around it, drive through a yard, whatever. It's hard to stop our guys. I'm sure at some point somebody probably could do it, but they're going to have a fight on their hands to keep us from getting there. And as far as an EMS call, the ambulances always have backup from the fire trucks and battalion chiefs and chiefs of staff. If we had to pull something out of the way, it wouldn't be the first time because we have pulled vehicles from places they shouldn't be with our vehicles already, so.
Very good.
Anything else I can answer for you?
Yeah, any other questions? Go ahead.
You're happy with the distance between the two access points?
Yeah, that's, the 1,100 feet is more than what we have most other places.
And you're happy with the construction of the access, the secondary access?
Yes, they've improved it. Prior to when it was just River Run,
Right.
It was gravel and it had some washouts in it and it wasn't in the best shape. And they have improved that tremendously from what it was.
And you're happy with the gate that's there? That's
correct. Yep. That gate's been there for years and years. The only other thing that I was going to discuss with them, Mr. Pestinger called me today about a lock on the gate. And so we might just add number 5 to that list of putting a Knox lock on that gate so that we can have access to it. So, and everybody else just can't use it for general access. So, but that'd be one that Mr. Pestinger brought up this morning.
Makes sense.
And Mr. Lee, you'd be okay with that?
100%.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to give the commission a heads up, if you wanted to incorporate that 5th condition, what we might suggest is to look at option 2 where it's approving it with an amendment, and we would edit that resolution, incorporate that condition if you feel that you want that to go into your decision, and we'll have the vice chair sign that resolution, after we edit it.
Well, I'd think we could just make the motion with that extra condition, couldn't we?
Well, it has to be.
Yeah. So your action is really about approving the resolution, either as written right now in front of you, or as amended, however you direct us to amend it. So the findings that I went over and the conditions of approval that I mentioned from the fire marshal, those are in the resolution itself. We were trying to have one clean way of forwarding all of this from you to memorialize that, for the plat, for the subdivision itself, but also to take forward to the city commission along with how you vote on the along with your recommendation to them. So yes, you're right, but I'm just saying that I would suggest doing option 2. You can still vote and act on it just with option 2 with the direction of how you want to amend it. And if that is to amend it with added condition 5, then we will get that done. It may be best to work out the exact language of that. If you have any feelings on anything different from what Joe said, and then we would update that resolution and we would get it signed, but you would still act on it right now.
Yeah, so Lauren Driscoll, Director of Community and Development Services, just for a little technical protocol. So you can take like a 5-minute recess and let staff work through that language. But in speaking with the fire marshal in the back, if what you're seeking is a 5th condition to simply require a Knox box padlock be associated with the access to that road, somebody could literally say, I make a motion that there's a 5th condition added to that. Body acts on that condition. You'd make a motion to amend the resolution to section 3 to include those pieces, and then you'd now have amended resolution, and you could adopt said amended resolution. And I will say it's a little different to have both the covenants being addressed and you're acting on the plat. So that's one of the reasons staff kind of bundled those together in one resolution. The difference between an ordinance and a resolution is you as a supporting board, in this case to the city commission, it's your voice and it's very specific. Sometimes a motion and a set of minutes is not enough to specifically capture all the pieces. So that's really what the resolution does. It gives you all the lead up, the whereases, and then at that bottom part says, now therefore, what are those things exactly that you're recommending to the body? So those are all highlighted and packaged very clearly there. It makes a very good record.
I concur.
What she said.
So if it's that simple that you would like to include or require that a Knox box padlock be used for the gate to the emergency access road, somebody can literally make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, my battering average is pretty good here today, so I'm going to take another swing at this one, if that's okay.
That's right.
I would make a motion that we amend application or resolution number 2602 to add a 5th requirement, which would be the addition of a Knox box. That's the first part.
A Knox box padlock.
Knox box padlock.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to amend Resolution 2602 to add a Knox box padlock as condition number 5. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries.
Okay.
So the amendment, or the resolution is now amended. Next step.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2602 with staff's recommended findings, confirming that the Overlook Estates Addition satisfies the requirements of the subdivision regulations through the existing secondary emergency access road under the currently adopted fire code, and recommend that the City Commission approve the release of the declaration of restricted covenant recorded in Book 1432, pages 980 through 983 of the Salina County Register of Deeds, consistent with the applicant's request and findings established in Resolution number 2602.
Second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2602 as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries as well.
Nice work, gang.
Thank you, Ms. Driscoll. All right. That takes us to the end of our business on my agenda. Any unfinished or other business needs to be brought up?
We do not have any other unfinished business.
I wanted to bring up one thing. I don't know if this is the position of the Planning Commission or what needs to be done, but the intersection of Schilling and Ohio is getting more and more dangerous with the traffic that is going through there right now. With the new subdivisions being built out, I don't know if we could recommend a traffic study or recommend some type of traffic control or what have you down in that area. I will be willing to see what direction needs to be going from there.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Lauren Driscoll, Director of Community and Development Services. Again, maybe one place to start is even to add just a non-action item of business to your next agenda, where maybe representation from Public Works comes to talk to you about that intersection. There are things that the city has adopted, such as long-range transportation plan and other components that would at least give you some background. And then from there, maybe more exploratory work or specific direction or communication to the City Commission.
Yes, we could do that as like a preliminary discussion item on the next meeting if you want. Is that what you're
Yeah, I
suggesting?
think that'd be a good
Do we have
spot to
make a
start.
motion for that or just address
No, you
staff?
can request staff.
I'm writing a note down and we can get that on.
Thank you, both of you.
I'd like to make a comment as well. Reading through, downloading this packet onto my computer was quite an extensive thing, and I can just imagine we've saved about 20 copies of War and Peace in paper, over this. I love the fact that we're using laptops now. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Anybody else?
And just give you a heads up, we do have a couple cases, a couple applications for the next meeting. We have two rezonings. One of them is going to be a rezoning from a regular commercial to planned commercial, and then we do have one preliminary PDD application. So, yeah.
And that'll be for April, correct?
April 7th.
All right, I would accept a motion of adjournment.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You are adjourned. Thank you, guys.